I have maybe an unpopular opinion based on what I'm seeing on the internet, and that is that fun is not something that happens to you, it's something you choose to engage with. So many different ways to play the decks that are out there, that this idea that the meta's like so uninteresting and boring, it to me seems like it's a personal thing, not a meta thing. All right, so I just recorded this video, but my mic apparently was muted, so which isn't ideal for recording. Yeah, that's a big tip. If you want to record something, make sure your mic is on. Anyway, wanted to share that I have maybe an unpopular opinion based on what I'm seeing on the internet today and the last few days. And that is that fun is not something that happens to you, it's something you choose to engage with. And this is in relation to the Pokemon TCG and its current meta. So my thoughts on the meta. One, a lot of this discussion is extremely premature. And I say that because we've had 10 days of it officially being released. I think April 10th was when rotation happened. And it's now April 20th. So we've had less than 2 weeks. So any conversation about what the meta is or what it's not, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is probably just hearsay because we haven't even had a tournament, an official tournament in the West that can really say what the meta is going to be. Sure, we have our thoughts based on Mickey's and live and what we think is strong and what we don't think is strong. And there was Full Grips tournament, but that was only 150 players, right? So yeah, probably premature. We should probably wait for a tournament to happen, which I think is Prague is this weekend or next weekend. I don't remember. It's coming up soon. And that'll be the first real test to say like, hey, this is what people are actually bringing and thinking. And then that'll probably shift too. Because like, if you remember a while back, there was that one tournament where like Cerulege was like 21% of the meta or whatever. And then it just died because it wasn't a very strong deck, right? Right after a change in the meta format. But so probably premature. Can't really use Japanese results because they're best of one, which obviously is a big deal. And their Champions League, you can change decks in the middle between day 1 and day 2, which also changes, you know, what wins and what we see as results based on like what people got in and what they were playing. And are we going to stick it out? Are we going to change things? And there's this whole like meta on top of meta game of like whether people are going to change decks or not change decks, etc. So that it's just not reliable results for us in the best of 3 format over here in the West, right? So we really don't know what's going to exist. Sure, you have Dragapult. Sure, you have Slotbox. You have Grassbox. There's Zoroark. There's Lucario. There's Garchomp, etc. But we don't really know what people are going to say is what's most popular. Obviously, versions of Pulse are going to be out there. But what I will say is that, oh, it's Pult. Sure. But there's like 18 versions of Pult, and they all play differently. We got straight Pult, right, with Risky Ruins and Jamming Tower and Watchtower, and you can play the slow game where you build up and you lock people. Like I think Tord is running it with like Evital and Pets. So you can do retreat lock stuff and build up damage with the poison, and like he doesn't even run the Risky Ruins. And then you have like 2 versions of straight Pult, and then you have Forest Pult as well he also was a part of concocting, I guess. So that plays completely different. You get to judge your opponent every turn, and like no one can. You have Rabsca, so you can like just crush the other Pult versions. You have Dusknoir Pult that still exists. I wouldn't play it. Seems kind of bad. You have a Blaziken or like Chicken Pult, which is good. You have Azumarill Pult, which allows you to get like more aggressive. You drop that Wellspring Ogerpon, and then you punch with Azumarill. I was actually playing that pre-rotation because I'm an Azumarill stan. I think it's an interesting way to play the deck. I don't know if it's the best way to play the deck, but it is fun. You have Wellspring Pult with like Noctowls and sort of more of like a Terror Box style type of deck. So it's like all these different versions of Pult that exist, and they all play matchups differently and have different lines, and so like this right there, you have like 8 different ways to approach the Pokemon TCG and its meta just in one deck, right? And then you have Slotbox, and Slotbox has like 97 different ways to play with it. You can play it with Pikachu. I play it with 2 Azumarills. Again, like I said, I'm a Azumarill stan. I'm having a lot of success with that. I can beat up on the one prize decks like Alakazam and Honchkrow. It just absolutely makes your Lucario matchup like unlosable, right? It can punch Pult, and you don't have to push a Clefairy up there, and it still one-shots it. You can take out Ogerpons and Meowth and Fez and all these sort of like 200-ish HP guys at one punches like Okidogi. But like, so for me, I like the Azumarill, but there's lots of ways that you can play that deck too. So even in that, different ways to play the deck. Same style, roughly, but I also play it with the water pawn. Like, there's different ways that you can approach that with that deck. And then you have the grass box, right? And grass box has like 97 versions, right? You got like the olive version. So you like, we're going to get super aggressive. We're going to start punching those baby mons as people build up to their stage 2 Pokemon. If they don't find that Shaman, if Shaman's prize, or they don't run it, right, you're just going to absolutely crush them with Arboliva. And then you have the grass pawns with Meganium to take those big knockouts. You also have Venusaur. Venusaur is like this like unkillable Pokemon. You can do 97 energy switches every turn. You can run it like a tanky version, right, that doesn't run Meganium. And so you just sort of say, hey, you're not going to kill me. Here's my Hero's Cape, right? Here's my 4 Wallies. Here's my Acerola's Mischief or whatever. And it just never dies. You just punch for 240 every turn once you get 4 attachments on there. And you still have a draw engine in Ogapons early, right? And then you have like a standard version with Meganium. So there's all sorts of different ways you can play the grass box as well. So right there, you have like 20 decks that you can choose from out of 3 of the sort of archetypes that are currently in the meta. That's not including Lucario. Lucario exists. It's okay. I don't think it's going to be a super strong contender. I think it might be popular, but I feel like it just, like, being a 3-prizer that easily dies to Psychic Pokemon seems quite bad. But it's a strong deck for sure. You have Garchomp. Garchomp even has a couple of ways. I've been seeing like Crisp and Monkey Dory. So that way you don't punch as hard, right? 260 is still a pretty good number. But you're able to just sit there with a power weight and say, hey, if you play Meganium, I'm going to chase it and I'm going to kill it with my 4 bosses or whatever, right? And outside of that, what is one punching a Garchomp with 400 HP? Nothing, unless they run Jamming Tower or like Tool Disruption. So, and then you just Monkey Dory stuff off, like 260 plus, like, you can hit 320. You can one-shot a Pult with just 2 Monkey Dories after they punch you for 200. So that's interesting. You have the standard Roserade version, which is like, is very linear. All you do is sit there and punch what's in front of you, but you punch really freaking hard with Gabites, with Garchomp, even with Roserades. I've seen some people like slot a Grass Energy in there to be able to sort of like punch when somebody pulls it up and doesn't get stuck. So there's just so many different ways to play the decks that are out there, that like this idea that the meta's like so uninteresting and boring, it to me seems like it's a personal thing, not a meta thing, because, and that's just naming 5 decks. There's also, you can still play like the Starmie, right? No one's really cracked the Starmie. You can look at that deck. That deck seems really strong. The Starmie does early, right? So what can we pair with that to make it like, hey, I'm gonna kill 2 things with Starmie after I go Meowth for Salvatore, and then I'm punching, going second, and I'm doing like donking people or whatever, and putting damage on the board for future things. And then maybe we run it with Area 0 so we can bump it and get it off the board so it doesn't die and it's a useless Pokemon after the first couple turns. So like, there's just so many decks that are out there. You have the Frostlass. There's a couple different versions of Frostlass out there. You could play the Mega. You could not play the Mega. You have just a standard Frostlass Monkey Dory. You got your Badoos, and you got your Evitals and Retreat Locks, and like Mega Absol Box still sort of exists, right? There's so many decks that are out there that are all different. You have your big basics. You have your control style. You have your Retreat Lock. You have your stage 2 sort of like, I'm going to play. You can't really play from behind right now. Like Reset Stamp sort of works, but you don't have your Iono Counter Catcher. But like, it doesn't mean you can't play from behind, just means it's not as strong, which is why you didn't see any big basic decks last format when Guardy and Dragapult and Iono and all the Counter Catcher existed, because it didn't matter if they went down, hey, I took 2 prizes and 2 prizes in my first 2 turns, right? Didn't matter, because they could just like Iono you down to 2 and then boss something and get stuck and then take like a 6 prize turn 4 turns down the road and you're just sitting there dead drawing, so you don't have those style of decks as much, like they're not as strong, but they had a year or more of being strong. So the meta is going to evolve and change. And what I would say is that it's probably a better idea than to just go and throw out the meta with the baby and the bathwater, and just say, hey, how can I approach this meta differently? How can I look at the game differently? How can, as I said from the very beginning, how can I find way to engage with fun? Because fun is not something that happens to you. It is not like, you're not the object of fun. You get to choose to have fun with whatever it is that you're doing. Same thing with attitude. You choose your attitude in the way that you approach anything that happens in your life. You can wake up and like be super mopey or whatever, but you can change that. The way you view things is also within your choice, right? I always say that, hey, if you have a poop colored glasses on, all you're going to see is poop. It's just the way it is. Take the glasses off and things might look better for you. So perspective and attitude and those types of things are all within your control for 99% of things that we engage with in our lives. And so, like, instead of like boo-hooing on the internet, because that's not going to change the meta. It's not going to make anything better for you. If anything, it's just going to spiral you down worse and worse into this pit of darkness where nothing's going to be fun and you're all mad and upset. And then you start liking everyone's posts that say the same thing as you, because like you feel justified in how you're looking at things. And it's just a death spiral that serves no one and serves no purpose, because it's not like Pokemon suddenly be like, oh, hold up, wait a minute, let me slot this new card in here to appease the internet. It's not going to happen, right? So it does no good. It's useless wailing into the wind. And so instead of that, let's find a way to engage with the meta differently. Let's build different styles of deck. If you're a control player, try something different. Like, sure, maybe you whiff out, right? But maybe at least you will enjoy the process of going O2 drop. You know what I mean? Like, and then you can use what you learned from that to continually build that deck and make it stronger. There's just a lot of different ways, and I think that people need to understand that your attitude and your perspective are going to really dictate how you engage with everything in your life, not just obviously the Pokemon TCG, but really everything. And once you learn that and you realize that, hey, I get what I allow in a lot of cases, and if you're allowing yourself to engage with the negativity that often feels good, instead of finding a way to continue being positive and build things up, to edify things and to make it better, then you're not going to enjoy things, because you're not doing anything to change that, right? We can cry and moan and that doesn't change anything, or we can change our perspective, say, hey, okay, what can I do to make this better, and try and find a way to make it better. And if, like, even if it's just for yourself to where you enjoy the game more, then hey, that's a plus over, hey, this meta sucks and I'm glad I already got my Haste Trainer because everything's awful and Pokemon's dumb and live doesn't work at all and blah 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 blah, right? All those types of things, right? Which some of them are real criticisms, but like a lot of it is just mostly, or I want to say mostly, but I bet a lot of it, if you look at it from a real perspective, is that people's favorite decks, or the decks that they like were successful with, are no longer like in because of rotation, or they're not as strong, and so they can't win as often, which makes them feel bad, right? Because people want to win when they're playing for the most part. So that's my thoughts on the meta. That's my way to, like, how I'm viewing it, how I've always viewed it. You can go back on my Twitter page and find the same stuff about the last games that I played in Legend of Runeterra and all the same type of conversations. This meta is so bad and blah, 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 blah. Well, there was one deck that I just absolutely hated, and hated that meta. That I couldn't get around it. Like, I couldn't get around it. I couldn't change my perspective on that meta. I mean, we all have those, and maybe you're going through one of those right now. But what I would say is, hey, to encourage you, is there's lots of different decks that you can play. The meta is not solved by any stretch or any word, any way, because there's just no time to do so, because everyone's chasing worlds and they're trying to practice for their next tournament, and the margins for being successful in Pokemon are so small, because something like as simple as benching a Pokemon when you shouldn't bench a Pokemon can completely disrupt and ruin your chances at winning, because now you can't bench that Fez 4 turns later because that bench spot is locked up, so now I can't draw, so now I can't find my boss, that all I need is a boss to win the game, etc. Like, the mistakes are really punishing in the Pokemon TCG, and so you really got to practice, and you got to know your lines, and you got to know what happens when you prize specific cards, because we don't even have access to the same 60 as each game. We are limited in because of the prize cards. So if something specific is prized that you normally use, like a one of Water Pawn or whatever, that you normally would Ultra Ball for and get set up so you can start setting up Torrential Pump to take out 2 Dracloaks or whatever, like, if that's prized, then you have to understand how to approach the matchup differently when that one of is in the prize cards. So it's like, it's so hard, and it's so like taxing when we make mistakes, and you have to practice really like intensely and precisely to learn matchups and all those types of things, what to do when certain things are prized, etc. That there's just not a lot of time for people to just sit down and just brew completely new decks with random cards, unless they're doing Pokemon full time. And so maybe this is your meta to do that in. Maybe you don't chase those tournaments, and you try and you brew that new meta deck that's going to shift everything. It's like, hey, no one ever thought of this before, and start playing those types of decks. And maybe you'll enjoy that more, this meta, because it's the style of deck that you like. And then like, hey, wow, I found something really cool. I did that in the last game that I played, and it was a top deck for essentially 3 full seasons.
Aggressive deck with the highest win rate in the game. Give a huge shout out to Trinidad for creating this deck and writing an incredible guide on masteringruneterra.com, so make sure to check that out. I gotta give one more shout out to Trinidad Plays. He is the inventor of this deck. He does all this research. I talked to him, he was cool with me doing a deck guide, and I'm very grateful for it because yeah, he knows everything there is to know.
And it was one of the top 3 most played decks, and it was a deck idea that I had that I created out of spite, actually, from a Pokemon name that we know, Skarzig. Hey Skarzig, love you, man. So yeah, like, and that is really rewarding when you build something that like no one thought of and it becomes a deck that's strong and it's really cool. Like that's rewarding and that's fun and that's interesting and that like makes you feel good and all this type of stuff. There's different ways that you can approach this game. That's my whole point. You can choose your attitude, you can choose to have fun, and you just got to find the ways to do that. And that's on us. That's not on the game. That's on us, right? So that's my thoughts on the meta. That's my encouragement to you guys, is to keep trying. Like, don't do the death spiral of negativity on the internet. Don't just wail into the wind about how awful everything is, because it changes nothing and does nothing for you. Is sometimes cathartic, but a lot of times it just, you spiral down and it's not really cathartic. You just end up worse than you were before. So yeah, anyway, my thoughts. Do all the like and subscribe and those things, and send it out and share and all those types of things. Cool. Also, if you could like and follow A to Z Card Family on all socials, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Bye.